Before we start today's episode, we have a job opening to tell you about. Raceline and Associates are looking for a Director of Operational Services. The role would involve managing the operational services group involving projects start to finish, ensuring that the project or product provided is accurate, correct and on time. For more information and to apply, visit the job section part on our website, metallpackager.com.
Hello and welcome to the Metal Pack Pod, the industry's leading podcast for the global metal packaging market. The Metal Pack Pod is brought to you by the Metal Packager, the number one digital resource for the global metal packaging market. With over 7,000 monthly users in over 150 countries globally, be sure to check us out on metallpackager.com. I'm your host Alex Fordham, and in today's episode we welcome Jason Galley, who is Director and Chief Executive of the Metal Packaging Manufacturers Association. During this episode, we discuss with Jason the state of play in the UK metal packaging sector. We outline the complexities involved in terms of EPR and how Jason plans to tackle a variety of multi-layered challenges and opportunities facing the organisation in 2024. Beginning his career at Carnaud Metal Box and holding subsequent senior positions at companies including American National Can, Alcan Packaging, Aerocan, as well as 12 years at Ball Corporation, Jason has 33 years experience in the metal packaging sector. He has worked across many steel and aluminium packaging sectors, including beverage, food, pharmaceutical, household and personal care. He brings with him a wealth of experience in operations and sustainability, which no doubt will hold him in high regard at the MPMA. But before we begin this episode, we must give special mention to our sponsors, PPG. We're proud to partner with you, and their range of innovative and sustainable solutions help protect and beautify the world. Now on to today's show. Good morning, Jason. How are you?
Very well, thanks, Alex. Thanks for inviting me along.
No worries at all. Looking forward to an interesting conversation. I know we've certainly known each other for a while now. I always remember, I think you were one of the first people I was due to interview when I joined the industry. This must be over a decade ago now, and turning up to rather peculiar location in the middle of nowhere. It was because I think your PA had actually given the postcode of your home address instead of the factory location, so I ended up turning up at your house instead of I think one of the Ball's production facilities. So I think that was our first introduction. But that was just a slight aside there. But looking forward to a interesting conversation here about obviously MPMA in general, but it'd be good to obviously learn a little bit more about yourself. With these podcast episodes, it's probably a nice place to begin at the start, really. So just if you can introduce our listeners to perhaps your heritage and your sort of background behind working in the can making business.
Great, well, thanks. Well, I won't start with where I live because you already know that. I've been in the metal packaging industry ever since leaving university. So I started out like a lot of people I'm finding at Carnaud Metal Box in Wantage, which seemed to be a great breeding ground for people who are in the can making industry. So I started off there, doing various tasks in the metallurgy department, including setting specifications for aluminium and steel. So that's a good grounding for where I've ended up now. And in between that time, I've worked for American National Can, making beverage cans. I've worked for various guises of what's now Ball's aerosol plant in devices. And I've done everything from sort of R&D management to production management to manufacturing director roles across multi-sites. And, more latterly, I've been involved in sustainability and innovation really heavily, and a little bit of marketing. And I think that's really good grounding for where I find myself now.
So you pretty much covered the whole the whole supply chain there. So you definitely bring a lot of attributes to the role here. So I'm guessing, having worked in the industry for a while, this role with MPMA sounded like a natural fit for you.
Yeah, and you'd think coming in with that background it would be easy, right? But no, that's wrong. I think coming with the background of having worked with steel cans and aluminium cans and knowing the packaging industry very well is a good platform and a really good head start. But there's so much that's new. There's this whole world that I'm discovering that as an industry guy you're not necessarily aware of. And it's quite a powerful network and one where a lot goes on that you perhaps wouldn't know. And I think that's where organisations like MPMA can help industry.
And perhaps for our international listeners, this is an ideal opportunity to maybe touch upon MPMA in more detail, so the Metal Packaging Manufacturers Association. I'm glad I did that first take, but it's obviously a trade body for the UK side of the industry. But if you can perhaps provide an overview of and the example of members and what you guys do and add value to the industry as a whole.
Okay, great. Yeah, so MPMA is the voice of the metal industry in the UK. So it's a UK-based organisation. Our members are typically who you'd find in metal packaging, so can makers who are making beverage cans, can makers who are making food cans, aerosol cans, promotional packaging, all kinds of aluminium and steel packaging. And we have something like 97% of the UK packaging industry in membership, which is great. So in terms of the network that we have in the UK, we're plugged into lots of other organisations that we form coalitions with when needed. So people like the Packaging Federation and Inkpen are useful allies. We are also part of the Metal Packaging Europe group. So there's lots of organisations like ours in different countries around Europe. And despite Brexit, we've managed to stay in that group. And that's really powerful. We're very near neighbours with Europe, obviously, and there's a lot of regulations coming out of Europe that we need to try and influence for the best. And I think that that's really the main task of MPMA, is to represent our members when it comes to getting legislation right, getting government policy right, so it's supportive of our sector and supportive of packaging generally.
Now's probably an ideal opportunity to pay tribute to your predecessor, Rob Fell, who you've been, I gather, shadowing for the last few months. So he obviously added a lot of value to the role, and it must have been a real privilege having worked with him over the last few months.
Yeah, thanks for raising that. I mean, Rob is somebody I knew anyway from the industry. He's been an industry figure for a long time, and we both started at the same place. I mentioned before, Metal Box is a great breeding ground for can makers, and that's where Rob and I first met. So when Rob told me he was retiring, it was kind of an obvious choice for me to try and carry the baton on from where he's been. He's done a fantastic job over the last 4.5 years, raising the profile of the metal packaging industry in the UK. An incredibly knowledgeable guy, and he's passed a lot of that knowledge on to me. That was a real help, and having a long handover period was fantastic. And Rob is still around. He still helps us where needed. He does his consultancy role really well, and we do tap into that. We, it would be a shame to lose all of that knowledge. And the team that we have around us has got a lot of experience as well. Debbie and Stuart, who support me. So we've got a fantastic team. It's a small team, but it punches well above its weight.
You mentioned about the fact that the organisation certainly punches well above its weight. I've had a look on your website, and it seems that you've got a small but mighty team, really. So I'm guessing you guys do have to draw upon experience from other individuals within the industry as well. So if you can perhaps provide an overview of the organisation in general, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, I mean the team is fantastic, and to punch above your weight, it's not just about that team, the small team that's working together. It's about how you leverage relationships. There is pretty much an organisation for everything in the UK, and I really didn't realise this until I started. So we have membership of lots of different organisations that are really trying to push packaging forward and make sure that government really understands the role of packaging and the strengths of our industry and sector, and its importance to the economy. So having these relationships with other organisations is really, really key. We have a broad membership. We have a loyal membership that's been with us more than 30 years. And that membership is really actively engaged in our organisation. So we have different committees that work on PR. We have committees that work on specifically general line. We have committees that work on health and safety, committees that work on beverage cans, and committees that work on food cans. And really we're as strong only as what we get back from our membership. So it's about how we keep the membership engaged, how we get senior figures from those companies involved in these committees and helping direct the way that the organisation is going and how it influences all of the various parts that need to be influenced to keep metal packaging healthy in the UK.
I'm just curious, obviously having joined the MPMA, you've had an opportunity to perhaps have an overview of the organisation now. So have you got any ambitions within the role, or have you got any challenges along the way? I'm quite curious as to how you're looking to tackle the can making business in the UK and what you're going to bring to the role.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing is that there's a lot to tackle. We've been doing a fantastic job before I arrived in terms of raising the profile of metal packaging, and yet I still find that I'm confronted with a procession of people and policies that are being proposed that really come from a position of not understanding metal packaging. So I think the first and foremost thing is that we get those policymakers and decision makers to really understand the virtues of metal, so that positions are taken and decisions are taken from a position of knowledge rather than a position of a little ignorance.
How do we do that? I mean, it's one of the criticisms that has been of this industry in the past, that it's always an industry of kind of fair play, that it doesn't tend to knock the other packaging materials that are out there, and perhaps this industry needs to be a little bit more assertive in its marketing approach. Do you subscribe to that kind of school of thought, or do you think it's a little bit more complex than that?
Yeah, it is more complex than that. I mean, I'm a metals man through and through. I've been in the industry 33, nearly 34 years now, and very, very pro-metal, because I believe in metal. I believe in its sustainability credentials. I believe in its performance characteristics. And it's a little bit nuanced, because you need to have alliances. Sometimes there are things that are happening that affect the whole of packaging, and it's important really that those alliances are kept alive so that the whole packaging sector can be defended. Sometimes that's necessary. So you need to keep people close, you need to keep people on board, and play fair. I mean, there are many virtues of metal packaging that, if understood, will naturally make people make the right decisions about which packaging to choose. So it's about pushing those virtues, really.
Do you feel at government level the decision makers truly understand the merits of metal packaging, or do you think that's kind of lost a little bit and it is really just seen as the packaging sector and it's not really seen as the individual merits of particular materials? Yeah,
there's a lot of, I find a lot of broad brush painting of things. So if people's background has been in other packaging materials, there tends to be a tendency to make assumptions about what applies to metal. And that can sometimes be wrong, which is a tragedy. We need to make sure that people are better educated. And this is where the job is really one of making sure that you're in the room when these things are being discussed. Our members can't be in those rooms with the DEFRAs of the world. We can, and we can put forward all of the arguments about metal packaging, how sustainable it is, how it's a solution to some of the circularity targets that the government has.
That's great. And I just wanted to get your take on the industry in general. I know, having spoken to a lot of our customers, suppliers, can makers within the industry, we've seen certainly aggressive growth within the metal packaging sector in the past few years. The sustainability narrative, certainly the consumption during COVID, and that's kind of has seen the real industry growth in the last certainly 5 years. But the last probably 6 months, the industry has kind of taken a bit of a backward step. Is perhaps not the right terminology, but perhaps a pause for breath collectively. I just wanted to get your take on things in the UK. What's the vibe you're getting from members as a whole, and is it doom and gloom, or is there some positivity there in the market, or is this just the natural cycle that this industry tends to see, where you see a period of aggressive growth, slow down, stability, and then we go again?
Yeah, I think the latter, that there is a lot of optimism. The fundamentals are good, right? Metal packaging, so aluminium packaging and steel packaging, have incredible sustainability credentials. There's a massive opportunity with things like EPR coming forward, that metal can play a fantastic role in the future of packaging in the UK. We are in a cycle. What industry really wants is certainty. When you have certainty, you can make investments, you can start to take long-term decisions about how you improve your product and how you grow the industry. We have uncertainty in a geopolitical sense at the moment. We have uncertainty coming from a cost of living crisis at the moment, and we have a general election this year, and the uncertainty that's bringing to all of these new packaging reforms, which are basically getting kicked down the road until after the new election. So those factors don't make for a good environment for making investments. And of course, everything is done way in advance. So that's lumpy capacity that comes in one go based on decisions that were made years ago. So this is the way the industry's always been, and it is a cycle, and there's great belief in those fundamentals, and of course things will catch up.
We interrupt this episode for a brief segment from our sponsors, PPG.
Packaging coatings from PPG draw on our company's 140-year history of innovation. We never stop improving our solutions to meet the evolving needs of can makers and the marketplace. That spirit of innovation results in technology like the cradle-to-cradle platinum-rated PPG Innovel Pro. PPG Innovel Pro is the latest enhancement to the world's #1 non-BPA beverage can coating. It still doesn't use any bisphenol ingredients, but experienced can makers report that it now sprays like an epoxy. Follow PPG Packaging Coatings on LinkedIn or visit packagingcoatings.com to learn more about why PPG is the coatings partner for can making excellence.
And Jason, I'm curious to get your overall take on things as well. So that's kind of the member situation, but from yourself in general, are you kind of optimistic for the future health of the metal packaging industry in the UK, or is it we've got some challenges to come, and then shortly as well we'll get into perhaps some of those challenges that we can talk about in more detail?
Yeah, I would answer all of the above. So EPR, the Extended Producer Responsibility, the great promise of that is that it's designed to increase basically the recycling performance in the UK, and if done well, it's a fantastic opportunity for such circular materials like aluminium and steel. This will be the year of EPR. Everything's been pushed beyond the election, so EPR will not go live until October 2025. The interim time is the important time. The time is now for those regulations to be shaped. So I think that's the area where organisations like MPMA can have the biggest influence for the best for our sector, and that's certainly going to be our focus over the coming years.
How do you sort of influence the policymakers in your role here?
Well, it's a program of education, firstly, of lobbying, and of advocacy. Really, people can make some sort of far-reaching decisions with far-reaching consequences from a position of not knowing, and unintentionally do damage to a particular sector or industry, and that's the kind of thing that would be a tragedy. So we have to make sure that these policymakers understand the virtues of metal. So take EPR, for example. There is going to be a fee that's going to get charged to the producers for taking care of their packaging after life. And those fees are going to be set based upon a recyclability assessment methodology that's currently being developed. And this methodology has been farmed out to a consultant. And we sit in these meetings and we hear that they're talking about recyclability and saying that any product that gets recycled end of life is therefore recyclable. ticking the box, job done. But the show is not over there. What really is important is what happens next. So if you have a product that gets recycled end of life and then is converted into something that is recyclable again and again and again, you have a product that is truly circular. So metals recycle forever, and end of life isn't something that happens with metal packaging. It gets turned back into another metal product again and again and again. That's a recyclability that has far more value than a product that gets recycled once into something that itself isn't recyclable. That's describing a linear process. So true circularity comes from being able to recycle over and over.
Your predecessor, Rob, he read a quote last year where he was saying it was EPR, it was totally impossible to prepare for fees in 2024, and EPR should have been up and running months ago. So he was obviously at that point was very downcast about the whole situation. So has there been progress made? I know at the moment it seems that we are in an election year, and pretty much everything from now until the election is put on hold. So is it a case of wait and see now, or is there a lot of work to be done in the interim that we can do to prepare?
Yeah, I mean, to the outside it looks like things are on hold, but actually this is the time where the furious activity is happening. Now is the time where decisions are being taken on how products are being assessed for their recyclability, how that then leads into fees and base fees for different material, and then modulated fees depending on recyclability. So it's a key time, and the big risk here is that it just becomes an exercise in adding more cost without delivering the environmental benefit. So for us, lobbying to make sure that metal is heard and valued is really key. I think we're also concerned by the fact that this is a government-ruled policy rather than an industry-ruled policy. It's important that local authorities are held to account rather than just being given the money from these fees and not being pushed to hit statutory targets for recycling. You look at an example of Wales, they're doing a fantastic job on their recycling rates, and it's because they're holding their local authorities to account. That needs to be done in the UK. So that's another area where teaming with other packaging organisations is important to make sure that the message is heard.
Obviously, don't want to make you a political analyst, but all the signs are that there will be a Labour government, or at least some sort of Labour involvement with regards to the next government. So, what are the potential implications there? I'm guessing you guys have done some planning as a result, because there will be some changes in personnel, and what will that have an impact on the EPR in general?
Okay, well, you have to hedge your bets, right? So, we're very well connected in all of the areas we need to be connected with government and with agencies, and and you have to cover every eventuality. I think in reality, what's going to happen is if there is a change of government, it's going to add potentially further delay, because that new government will want to stamp its mark on whatever those regulations are. So we're concerned that this period of uncertainty is going to continue.
Okay, and with that uncertainty, is there anything you guys can do in terms of trying to navigate the industry and your members through that period of uncertainty? Is there anything you guys can do in general to hopefully stabilise things?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, and we have time. And the key thing is that we get in the room, and the key thing is that we're supported by our members to get the right messages out in the right places. So member involvement is going to be key to supporting us in that. We think that this could be a big opportunity, so slightly optimistic tone to that. But of course, if it's not done correctly, it could be a disaster. So it's something that we really, really need to work hard on.
No, that's fine. No, thanks very much for the feedback there. I just want to move things on somewhat, and I know we've talked about sort of the benefits of the MPMA. It might be a nice opportunity to get into some of the potential benefits for members and also those that are thinking about joining an industry organisation. I know we mentioned about the fact that the industry is perhaps in a state of flux at the moment, and it's always good to be part of an organisation during those periods when we are going to see immense changes.
Yeah. I think we've got a strong membership. More than 95% of the UK metal packaging industry is in membership. So one of the challenges is to keep everything fresh and to keep those members involved, because we really do need that support. There are opportunities for associate membership for those in the supply chain. And when we're talking about EPR regulations and how they're going to affect potentially purchasing choices that consumers and brands are making, then it's going to impact the supply chain as well. And that associate membership option is really good for people who want to support the metal industry, to support their own businesses. In terms of the benefits, well, it's about getting your voice heard and in the room, which is a phrase I keep mentioning. But unless you're in the room catching some of these mistakes that could get made, then things can progress from a position of ignorance, which is not good. The other thing I'd say is that we do a lot of work on the PR side to get the word out about metal packaging, and that of course takes money, and that's where the membership dollars get spent. We have a few platforms. We have one called Do It With Cans, which is supporting general line products and showcasing how they can be used in kind of DIY circumstances. And then we have our Can Makers organisation, which is promoting beverage cans and their use in the UK, showcasing how they can be used for a range of different products, how they're becoming more and more fashionable for drinks like hard seltzers and wines. And then we have our Canned Food UK platform, which, as the name suggests, highlights and showcases what you can do with canned foods. We have a celebrity chef who works with us, a guy called Theo Michaels, and getting the word out about how you can use cans in cookery enables you to then talk about the sustainability credentials. So these platforms are really important for generally putting the message out to brands and to consumers about the benefits of metal packaging from a sustainability point of view and a use point of view.
No, that's brilliant, and particularly the whole influencer sphere. It definitely seems that that's an area of opportunity for the industry that perhaps we haven't tackled quite as much as we should have. So no, that's excellent stuff in that regard. And I just want to take things back slightly. And you mentioned about obviously EPR and the challenges there, but are there any other areas of not concern but any challenges along the way that you guys need to navigate in the next perhaps 12 to 18 months? I know we mentioned Brexit earlier, and obviously we've still had the hangover effect of the associated policy there, but are there any other sort of key areas that we need to be perhaps as an industry cautious of, and under your helm it's kind of you're going to be hopefully ensuring that the industry can navigate these challenges in the next 12 to 18 months?
Yeah, I think a big one, and it comes back to EPR again, is that I'm starting to see a little mission creep on EPR from DEFRA. There are noises being made about, what next? Let's extend EPR beyond pure recyclability and start looking at other sustainability features like embedded carbon or like refill. And the question always is, who's the arbiter of this? Who is the one who's allowed to make a decision on what's good for the environment and what's not? And so influencing that is going to be really key. Boundaries are important. So when you look at carbon, for example, WRAP did a study that showed that if you take the total carbon of the whole UK food chain, about 66%, 2/3 of that is to actually make the food. And just 3% of that is on the packaging. So packaging is something that protects carbon. And just to put that in context, double that carbon, 6%, is related to the consumer taking the food back from the store to home. So boundaries are really, really important. The UN says that we waste 33% of the food that we produce in the world. That's where the real gains are to be had. So you have to look at carbon of the system rather than just carbon of the packaging. And of course, there's nothing better at protecting food than the metal can. Food cans have shelf life of up to 5 years and can really impact food waste. And I think they're going to be part of that program going forward, provided people understand the benefits. That there's going to be competition for land because of climate change, because of population growth. We can't afford to waste food.
We've talked here. We don't want to sound too doom and gloom. We've covered quite a few areas. I think perhaps we need to bring things back a tad. And overall, you mentioned about you are optimistic for the future, and perhaps if we can, as we come to a conclusion here, is perhaps we can outline a few areas where you are hopeful for the future, and how the industry will perhaps look in the next 3 to 5 years.
Yes. Okay. So, the fundamentals for metal packaging are fantastic. It is a package that really protects well and performs well in terms of the packed product. Sustainability wise, there is no better product, in my opinion, for meeting the goals of recyclability and circularity than metal. It's a product that recycles forever and can be used again and again. This concept of a permanent material that's always available and can be used again and again, easily melted down, easily reformed into something new. It's just a fantastic product. So those fundamentals are great. Moving forward in terms of what's going to happen in the next years, well, things will settle down. Certainty will return, or at least uncertainty will diminish. And then you'll start to see the traction that's being gained with things like decarbonisation of aluminium and decarbonisation of steel. These things will gain traction and place the metal package even further to the fore when it comes to sustainability.
Absolutely, it's play the long game, as they say, isn't it? Really. So, I certainly share your optimism for the future, and it'll be interesting to see how the industry develops, and also how MPMA develops under your tenure. So, look forward to it, and perhaps we'll catch up again in a few months' time to see how you're getting on.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you so much.